Bonjour, ça va, بخير؟
بخير الحمد لله.
حالة بس؟
Allez, best. On parle de migration.
Oui.
Là, on est là.
We will be talking about migration. We are here.
Bonjour Najib.
Hi, Najib.
Bonjour, Kautar. Merci.
Good morning, Kautar.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
So it's also 10, so I propose that we start on time. We hope that still some more people will join us today, but welcome to everyone. Just to briefly repeat is that we have interpretation today. So we have interpretation in French and Russian. So you can select the interpretation channel with the globe icon in the menu.
Page.
Can we show the presentation, Nicole? So today I welcome you to the Skills and Migration webinar, part 1. So this also intends that there will be a part 2, but we will also like to hear your interest and maybe also your questions, issues we should address in the next webinar. My name is Jolien van Uden, and at ETF I coordinate all the ETF work on vocational excellence. And I'm here together with my colleague Maria Vittoria Galappi, and she is also migration expert, ETF senior expert, and she will introduce us to the topic today. Can I go to the next slide? So yeah, the objective of the meeting is to see what the role of Centres of Vocational Excellence could be related to migration and skills. And I will start with a short introduction to the ETF Network of Excellence. I think many of you are members of our network and know our network very well, but I also know that there are some participants today who are not yet part of the network. So I would like to take this opportunity to present the network again before moving to the core of today's webinars on the key concepts about skills and migration, how training, employment, and migration interact. Then we will also have some time to focus on EU policies related to labor migration. And we have seen on the log that we have participants from many different countries, from EU member states, ETF partner countries, and even beyond. So it would also be interesting to see who are you who actually joined at the moment. Where are you coming from? So please let us know in the chat. Then after these presentations, and there will be time for some interaction, we will also like to hear about your challenges and experiences working on the dimensions of skills and migration. And I see that the last part on the ETF Migration Community will have it before the Mentimiter before closing. So let me start with the ENE Network, and I also invite you to put any questions you might have throughout the webinar in the chat, and we will try to address them. Can I go to the next slide? So our ENE Network, ETF Network on Excellence, started in 2020, and now we already have, I think, even 334, because I think we just added a new member. But you can see that the network has been growing a lot over the past years. And members are coming from 54 countries worldwide, as you can see on this map. We have many members from EU member states, even more from our ETF partner countries. But you see that we have also many members from Africa, but for example, also from the Philippines, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Thailand, and Nepal, and also Chile and Switzerland. And the network is still growing. Next slide, please. So we also often have the discussion, what is a Centre of Vocational Excellence? And you can see here in the middle of the figure what Centres of Vocational Excellence are working on. And they often have like a student-centered, holistic approach. A very important element is that they work in partnerships with others not just with companies, but also with other actors in the field, for example, other educational institutes, research organizations, community. They really aim to meet labor market and societal demands. Also, therefore, the partnerships are very important. They provide innovative training methods, keep their teaching staff, because in the end, the teaching staff, of course, is key, up to date with professional development, engage in international activities, are entrepreneurial and inclusive. And also the latter is very important, because sometimes when we speak about excellence or vocational excellence, people think it's for a few. No, vocational excellence should be there for all, with different interests, different capacity, different talents. So inclusive is very important. So what is a Center of Vocational Excellence? We see here also at the side, both sides of this slide, it could be a vet school, a provider working in partnerships who's really an example in a specific region, country, or sector for others. It could be someone leading a cluster or a network. For example, there could be a center that is also supporting other vet providers in the same sector, for example, on construction. And what we also see is really the Center of Vocational Excellence as a full ecosystem, even internationally, if we look, for example, at the Erasmus Plus funded Centers of Vocational Excellence. So if we can go to the next slide. So with ENE, we have been supporting vocational excellence as the Centers of Vocational Excellence to further develop themselves, to further enhance their vocational excellence. And we have been focusing on several topics throughout the years. And you see the topics here. We had autonomy and public-private partnerships, focusing on greening, sustainability. We have Greta. We are focusing on pedagogy and professional development related to digitalization of teaching in DG ENE. We have entrepreneurial CoVEs, which some of you probably have joined the webinar we had in April. It was, I'm looking at Maria Victoria, the time flies. It's still April, yeah. Disseminating the policy note and toolkit developed under that partnership. We had also one on innovation, on social inclusion. Other topics where we have worked in partnership is work-based learning, and also integrating the role of career guidance in VET. And here we always work with a small group of interested CoVEs. If we can go to the next slide. Then we have an overview. Here you can see that in andere CoVEs, on entrepreneurial CoVEs, we had, for example, 5 CoVEs participating actively. But then, for example, in the one on autonomy and public-private partnerships, we had even 28 Centers of Vocational Excellence participating. But the important thing is that we try there to develop tools, policies, reports together to learn from each other's experiences, and also to be able to disseminate it to others interested later on. And the partnership still active this year as the one DG ENE on digitalization, and Greta. Yeah, next slide, please. So if you would like to learn more about our work on ENE, Vocational Excellence, I invite you to go to the website or to Open Space. You will also find results, products delivered by all the different partnerships there. And we added here also a link to our other related project, EU-funded project, the International Dimension of Centers of Vocational Excellence, Internationalizing Vocational Excellence, where we have developed several products that can also support you on your journey to vocational excellence, such as the e-library, knowledge packages on creating partnerships, and a cookbook on vocational excellence. So you will receive this presentation after the webinar, and I invite you to explore the different links on this website. And of course, if you're not a member yet and you would be interested in joining us, write an email to the email address you find on this slide. So I think with that, I would like to hand over. I think it was the last slide for my part. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, I would like to hand over to Maria Vittoria.
Thank you, Jolien. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. My name is Maria Vittoria. Here in ETF, I'm part of the migration team. I'm the migration focal point, and I'm very happy to be able to share with you as Centres of Vocational Excellence some ideas, some concepts about the skills dimensions of migration. We in ETF, we believe this is the most important aspect in migration. Although we see in the media and in the communication, other aspects have so far been receiving more attention. But what more than the knowledge, the experience, the expertise that a migrant can bring to a country, or that can bring back to his own country, can make his life or her life better. So we would like to start by sharing with you some of the key issues about labor migration that characterize ETF partner countries, according to some recent studies that we conducted. As we have seen, labor migration is a prominent feature. This means that it characterizes practically one way or the other all our partner countries. In terms of skills levels, we see that over time, in the last 30 years, there has been an increasing level in the skills of the migrants, and also an increasing rate of female migrants. And also highly skilled female migrants. So we can already spot here a risk of brain drain, but we leave it here for now. Then another important aspect over the last few years, we have seen the migration country profile of many of our partner countries becoming more and more complex. What we mean by that is that we see in parallel that many countries are experiencing emigration flows, meaning their own national, their own citizen live in the country, but also immigration flows. So economic migrants coming in to take jobs that the nationals don't want to take, and also flows of transit. So this requires articulated policy responses vis-a-vis what was maybe the case a few years ago, where some countries were basically characterized by emigration flows, net emigration flows. The skills dimensions, they are more and more recognized as an important aspect, both by the sending countries and by the receiving countries. So remittances are important, financial gains from migrants are important, but they are not enough. And then the triple win. As ETF, we really believe that labor migration should be seen in terms of gains for the sending countries, for the receiving societies and economies, but also for the migrants themselves. And we will come back to that later. Another important feature of ETF partner countries is the important refugees flows. As we know from the news, further to wars and climatic change, there are huge movements of people that are forced to leave their countries. And the countries are very many. We mentioned some here: Ukraine, Moldova, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Libya, Egypt, and you name it. What is not always put under good value is the fact that refugees have talents. So they also need to be considered as workers, potential workers, bringing knowledge and expertise. Next slide, please. So when we talk as ETF about the skills dimensions of migration, what does this really mean? What are the issues at stake here? Basically, for us, the skills dimension means a relationship. A relationship between skills provision in the countries of origin. So what the education and training system provide their citizens with in terms of skills, competencies, attitudes. And then the second pole of this relationship is employment. Employment at home, meaning access to the national labor markets. And how far this happened. Third pole of this relationship is labor migration. So how far these three dimensions get together, how far one influences the others, how far the good level of training provision affects employment in the countries of origin, or how far this leads to leaving the country, rightly because it's a good education and there are not enough decent jobs. How far a country is attractive in terms of offering good quality jobs. So here we see that there are issues at many very levels, and one is the skills. So we can talk about low-skilled, medium-skilled, highly skilled labor migrants. We can also distinguish between female migrants, male migrants. There are different features, as we know, especially for married women with children, who are also among migration subgroups. And then issues of underutilization of migrant skills. This is a common feature that we unfortunately see. Another issue is access to information about the jobs that are available in their own country, but also abroad, and how a person can make a good choice for his or her life. Here, as ETF, we consider labor migration as an option. We are not here to push or to pull for migration. We consider it as part of employability. So migration can be an option in the short term or in the long term. It can also foresee seasonal migration schemes, circular migration, but we believe this is ultimately up to the singular person that should decide about where they want to work and for how long. Now we can, according to the literature and our observation of labor migration, we can identify at least 4 patterns that can give us an idea of how this relationship can work. The relationship between skills provision, access to national labor markets, and labor migration. The first most known one is brain drain. What does this mean? Brain drain, let's say technically speaking, is defined as when more than 10% of tertiary educated people migrate. So according to this pattern and according to this interpretation, migration is a win-lose game. What does this mean? That is a win for the countries of destination, but it's a lose by the countries of origin. This why? Because according to this understanding, the departure of large numbers of educated workers is detrimental to the country's own development. In fact, is a bit more complex than that, because if we consider that you may have highly skilled people in the country not finding a job, is it better that they stay, or is it better that they leave and do the job for which they studied? So brain drain is not a simple concept, does not have simple implications. But this is definitely a very recurrent reference in the debates, and we need to be aware of this. A second understanding about this relationship about of skills dimensions of migration is brain drain. This is definitely a completely different scenario. According to this understanding, migration is a win-win game. What does this mean? Is that migration as an incentive for education acquisition for society at large, for many citizens, ultimately fosters human capital formation. So whereas many people will learn new skills, new knowledge with the idea to leave, only a few of them will leave. This we know, that's how it works. But many of them will have acquired new skills, new competencies, and this new human capital acquired can be beneficial to the country of origin. So win-win, according to Brain Gain. Another optimistic way of looking at labor migration is the pattern or the interpretation understood as brain circulation. According to this understanding, migration is an ongoing circular process. It's not a one-off move. It's a new paradigm, of course, linked to globalization, and the focus is on flows and not on loss of skills and where they are. So according to this interpretation, people move, and normally they move to more than one country. So, and they can also come back to their own country. And that is the understanding that is a win-win for everyone. And then we have the understanding of brain waste, according to which labor migration is a lose-lose game. What does this mean? Is that the interpretation is that due to the mismatches between education levels and job types performed by the labor migrants, and this underutilization or de-skilling process is not good for anyone. And this is due to the fact that limited types of jobs and sectors are normally open for migrants, such as in construction, caregiving, agriculture, hospitality, commerce, transport, manufacturing. We saw that during COVID, that many so-called essential works were performed by labor migrants, and many of them had skills and qualifications much above the jobs that they were performing, and they are still performing. This picture, these four, let's say, angles of looking at labor migration are a bit of a simplification for this webinar. Of course, there is a lot of literature behind that can give much more information and country-specific understanding of these relations. We can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so here now we move to some key recent EU policies and mechanisms regarding labor migration. Why? Because as you may know, Europe is experiencing what is called demographic winter. There is this aging society here. At the same time, there is a need for highly skilled people or medium skilled people to embrace and to support the technological transition, the so-called green and digital twin transition, and also be able to do jobs that are more and more automated. So the EU has come up in the last few years with a number of policies in order to address these needs. And here, I think it's back to Yolene, right? For the first part of the policies, and then I will take up some others later. Thank you.
Then Loretta, I don't see any questions in the chat yet, or? No? We invite you to ask if you have any questions or reflections, please share them in the chat and we can address them. If we can just briefly go back to the previous slide. So in March, the Union of Skills was announced because Ursula von der Leyen mentioned that Europe needs a radical step change in ambition and action for all skills level and all types of training and education. And she mentioned that this is important for people's careers and prospects, as well as for the competitiveness of the European Union. But if you look at what the Union of Skills tries to address, I think you see the 3 points here. These are points that are issues that happen, I think, in almost in many countries, maybe almost every country in the world. It's the skills shortages and gaps in some areas. But also a very important issue is this transformation speed gap. I think many of you are representing Centres of Vocational Excellence, providers. It is very challenging always to adapt education and training system to the technological transformation and changing skills needed. It always takes time to change a qualification, to develop a curriculum. Then it might take 3 or 4 years to complete the program, and things change rapidly. So this is one of the challenges we always face as education. And then another point addressed with the Union of Skills is also the fragmented governance and skills intelligence. And of course, in the European Union, with many different countries, with different systems, it is always a challenge to align everything. We can go to the next slide. In the Union of Skills, there are 4 pillars to address these challenges, these issues. One focuses on initial education, and it's called Building Skills for Life. And here you see the priorities the European Union is setting at the moment. It's basic skills and STEM education, the digital education and skills. It's also, of course, about how to use artificial intelligence in education. Teachers and trainers are, of course, the key actors also for high quality education. And one of the things, if we focus on that, is that there will be a European strategy for vocational education and training. Then the second pillar focuses more on upskilling and reskilling to ensure future-oriented skills. And here you see that there will be 2 pilots. There will be EU Skills Academy. At the moment, for example, there are also these net zero academies to really prepare people to get the skills needed to have the green transition, to be ready for the green transition. And there really companies work together also with education to upskill and reskill people to be ready for this transition. One of the things I think has been addressed, is coming up in many countries as well, are these micro-credentials to support upskilling and reskilling, the Pact for Skills, and the role also of apprenticeship, of work-based learning. We already have several of our ETF partner countries who are also part of the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. And another point here is the individual learning account. So you see these first 2 pillars focus on initial education and then also further upskilling and reskilling. If we go to the next slide, we also go more to how do you recognize, or how do you use skills used in or developed in one country in another country. So here we will also address more this migration dimension of skills, and the EU with the different in the different member states. It's an important issue to address, as Maria Vittoria already said. Like, we all have to deal with migration. There are people coming in, there are people leaving to get other experiences or to use their skills abroad. And so here we have the Union of Skills will work on skills portability. So yeah, if you develop skills in one country, can you bring them to another country and get them recognized? An important issue within Europe is also the automatic recognition of study qualifications and learning periods abroad. Also, if we look here in the light of was really important Erasmus Plus. And one of the things that you would like to look at as well is to see whether there could be joint European study programs. And here, if you look 2 bullets below, you also see a European VET diploma. So not a diploma recognized only in one country, but at the European level, but that would be a pilot, as you can see. So the last bullet point I want to strengthen here as well, because that's also why you're here, is to strengthen the role of Centres of Vocational Excellence in the circulation allocation of skill. And this also implies that Centres of Vocational Excellence can play an important role both in preparing students with the possibility maybe to find work to move abroad, but also receiving migrants from other countries who might need their skills recognized, validated, or who might need some reskilling or upskilling to be able to find a job in their new country. And then the last one really mentions the migration, because the last pillar is also from the EU perspective to attract and retain skills from third countries. And here you see a couple of mechanisms that should support this as well. So this is a very recent policy. And with that, I move the floor back to Maria Vittoria for some other EU policies related to the skills dimension of migration.
Thank you, Jolien. Before I move to the next slide, I would like to take the question from Najib, who is asking in the chat how far the private sector has been involved in the making of these policies. Definitely, these policies address the skills needs and the labor needs of the private sector. We see from the studies conducted by the sectoral federal federations of SMEs, but also from big companies, that they make estimations of labor gaps in the next 20, 30, 50 years. And the figures are quite striking. Only for drivers, I just make an example, drivers for heavy load trucks and buses and touristic buses. In the next 20 years, we will need 500,000 only drivers because of as I was saying before, the demographic winter in Europe, and on the growing needs in this sector of logistics and transport. But then you name all the other sectors. So yes, Najib, the needs of the private sector are at the basis of these policies. How the private sector has been involved is through consultations with the sectoral federations. What we also observe in Northern Africa, for instance, in Morocco rather than Tunisia, that big companies are already in recruiting by themselves directly. So they come to Casablanca, Rabat, or Tunis with their offices and they recruit people, because the needs are enormous, are really, really big. And they are, what is new in the last few years is that these needs are at all skills levels. It's not anymore an issue of highly skilled people, or it's also for low skilled, medium skilled, and for practically every economic sector. Okay. if you have other questions, please. And I will just show another couple of slides, and then we can open to some common reflection on all this information that Jolene and myself are sharing with you. Next slide, please. Yeah. So more specifically on labor migration, there is this call, and there have been new policies. The overarching, let's say, policy is the so-called New Pact on Migration and Asylum, which was first presented in 2020 and finally adopted in all its parts in 2024. So it took 4 years. It was quite an intense debate within the EU. And one pillar out of 6 of this new pact is rightly about talents. How to upskill, reskill, skill talents that may serve the needs of the sending countries and of the European countries. Then there is a communication on attracting skills and talents that is from 2022, a package presented in November 23 on skills and talent mobility, and that with a special component on the recognition of third country nationals' qualifications. I will not, and then what Jolene just said, the very recent just approved Union of Skills. So you can see there is quite a battery of policies. These policies are being accompanied also by mechanisms and tools to make the policies effective. Quite an important one is the so-called talent partnerships. And these have been launched so far with 5 countries, 3 of them in the partner countries, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, but also Bangladesh and Pakistan, and other countries are in the pipeline. What are these talent partnerships? Basically, they are mechanisms to coordinate and jointly manage labor migration flows between partner countries, selected partner countries, and some member states. It's an exercise that is voluntary, so only those partner countries who want it can go for it, like the 5 I just mentioned. But and also for the member state is a voluntary effort. And each talent partnership has a matrix. This matrix is a list of professions on which there is an agreement by the selected partner countries, country of origin, and the member state to work together to train people that can serve the needs of the countries of origin and the countries of destination. So basically, this matrix is an agreement, is a formal document, and it helps to identify which are the professions that are in need on both sides, and for which there will be coordinated and joint training efforts. The talent pool is a second mechanism, and it will be launched soon. This will be a portal where every citizen in the globe can have access to what are the vacancies in the member states and apply for it. It's gonna be on an individual basis, whereas the talent partnership is more a coordinated institutional mechanism. Then we have the revision of certain very important directives. One is the so-called single permit directive that makes it easier to obtain a combined work and residence permit, and also tries to safeguard from labor exploitation. Also the revision of the long-term resident directive that makes it easier to obtain long-term resident status, and also easier to move across member states. Then there are several tools that are being produced and also used regarding the skills. And one is the EU skills profile for third country nationals, Europass. ETF has set up a resource hub for Ukrainians, and all what we mentioned here, Jolene and myself, in the last slides of this presentation that you will receive, you will find the links. So you will be able to open and click on each one of these policies and tools that we just mentioned. Next slide, please. Now, what are the key ongoing initiatives about labor migration? So we have seen the policies, we have seen the mechanism, but what is it going on in the field? There are initiatives that are funded by the EU and others that are funded by the member states or by private sector. Among those funded by the EU, we can see the strategic partnership agreements so far signed with Tunisia, Egypt, and and Jordan. Next one will be Morocco. Each one of these strategic agreements has a very important component on migration, joint migration management. This means that there is a will and there is a commitment by the EU and by those countries together to manage migration in a legal and coordinated way and safe way. Then talent partnership, I just mentioned them, I will not repeat. Also, the EU is funding pilot projects, and they are in many countries of the world, and they are funding to innovate labor migration approaches. They include upskilling and reskilling. Again, in the slides, you find the link because this is a call for proposal. It's open now. There are several million available, and your centers of excellence in partnership with others can rightly address, participate in this call for proposal. Then there is the TAM Plus program. This is for Northern Africa. It's a huge program now going on for a few years, and it's about evidence collection, policy making, and experimenting labor pathways between these three countries and European member states. In parallel to the EU funding, we have the bilateral institutional agreements, and they cover several countries. They are labor migration agreements with individual EU member states. They normally are sector-specific, job-specific. They include seasonal migration, especially in agriculture, but also in hospitality in many cases. And then, as I was saying before, private companies, mainly the big ones, in several countries of the world are already active directly to recruit people. So all this is going on in parallel. It's not, you can see in every country that there may be different of these initiatives, and maybe this list is not exhaustive, so that maybe there is even more. Next slide, please. So what is ETF doing in all this? Basically, ETF supports the partner countries and the EC services along 4 strands of work. First one is support evidence-based policy making. So what we do, we support ministries in education, training, but also labor, also social partners, civil societies in coming up with a vision to mainstream labor migration across education and training policies. What we observed through our studies is that despite the fact that so many migrants are leaving from the countries, partner countries of ETF, not all countries or very few of them capture the needs of migration within the education and training system. To capture this, you need to start with a vision, and that's where ETF is helping. We have produced a few studies. Here you find the names. Everything is available on our website. We also support the identification of skills needs of the labor market at home and abroad. It's important that the partner countries or countries of origin have a strong observatory function on the sectors, on the jobs, on the skills in demand in their own country and abroad in order to come up with a win-win solution. Here, again, I mention some studies and tools that you find on our website. Next slide, please. we also support the upskilling and reskilling of potential migrants, immigrants, returnees by helping increase quality and relevance of education. We work on active labor market policies, career orientation. And here I mentioned the Center of Vocational Excellence because we see that there is a room for you to play, to support your citizens, be them leaving, be them coming back, be them seasonal workers, or also to support the upskilling, reskilling of incoming international migrants. And through the exercise we will do in a while, we rightly would like to understand if you see this as an area where you want to work, where you are working, where you think you have a role to play, because ETF could support you through the ENE network. And then we have all our work on recognition of qualification and skills validation in order that portability of skills and the transparency of qualifications are ensured. Again, you find on our website many tools that we produce, many studies. Next slide, please. Okay, here is the treasure. So here you find all the links to all what Jolien and myself we just mentioned. Please take the time to open those links, have a look, see if they can be useful for you. You will find here both ETF and EU Commission tools and methodologies and policies. Next slide, please. This is on ETF website, all what you can find. And I will close with the next slide and what is coming up for the future. Okay, so my last slide is about the fact that as ETF, we have just launched a community of migration experts, so-called MIG community. It's part of the ETF wider Skills Lab network of experts. The migration community will involve researchers, analysts, but also practitioners worldwide. And the idea is that we share ideas, we reflect on how to make this relationship between skills provision, employment, and migration more effective for the people and for the countries of origin and the countries of destination. So if you are interested to join us, please register immediately to this link EU survey, because tomorrow morning we will have the first introductory meeting of this community, and you are most welcome to join us. I stop here, and I look forward to your reaction and thoughts. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Comments, feedback on all the presentations given?
Is it too much? All at once? But we also have another webinar, so to digest everything.
If not, let's start with the Mentimiter. Maybe we get some inputs to reflect on. I would ask you to open Mentimiter at www.menti.com and to enter the code or to use the QR code you see here on the right side. And I think we might also have, Lorette, do we have a link to share in the chat as well? You can also use the link in the chat. So please join us. Let's see, people are joining. Good. I see also that there is a question in the chat before we move to the Mentimeter. From Raul Boino Lapa, what's the overall policy for integrating the migrating students at vet schools, excellence centers in European countries like Portugal? Maria Vittoria, are you aware of examples?
Thank you for the question. There are many projects in many parts of the EU to better integrate the students at vet excellence centers. There is no policy so far, also because that's my interpretation. There are many issues when you talk about integration that are under the sovereignty of the member states. So issues like getting a permit or to stay, residence permit, study permit, working permit, or recognition of your qualification, all this is under the sovereignty of every member state. And so far, what we see is that there are many projects that tackle the issue that you raised, Mr. Boino Lapa, but to my knowledge, there is no policy now, not yet. I don't know if it will come up. If you want to know about other experiences, have a look at the pilot project, which I mentioned before, because some of them also may cover this topic. Thank you. Maybe we can go to the first question of the Mentimeter. Thank you.
Yes. So the first questions, we would like to ask you, what are the challenges? What are your challenges in addressing the skills need of migrant workers?
And here you can be very open, because as ENE Network, we are trying to understand how the Centres of Vocational Excellence can play a role linked to labor migration. So your challenge may be of all kinds. There is no right or wrong answer. There is, maybe you don't know what are their needs or, yeah, okay, let's see. Do you know about the needs that are the skills needs in Europe or in your own country? Do you know? Do you know if there are common needs? Do you know about maybe pedagogical methods for migrants? Do you think there are needed? Do you think they have specific needs for provision? You can put more than one reply.
And you can also reply in one of the two other languages, in French or Russian.
So languages come up as a quite, no, Jolene?
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the area of recognition.
Yeah. Recognition, prior qualification, maybe.
And then very important, the issues of respect cultural needs, housing, accommodation, and housing. Anyone would like to share with us also verbally your experience, if you had some experience, how it worked, why it was difficult or why it was easy, what you found difficult or easy.
Maybe we can also move to the next question. Because it's also, in the previous one, we asked you about the challenges, but we would also like to know whether you have any experience with identifying, developing, or recognizing skills and qualifications of migrant workers. We see some yes, more no's at the moment.
Those of you who have experience, would you like to share a bit with us? Or those who don't have, why you didn't have, you tried and it was too difficult, or you don't think it should be in among your activities to work with migrant workers? It would be important for us to understand whether this area of work can be interesting for you as Center of Vocational Excellence, useful, or if you don't see a role for you in this. And
maybe I can share. Hello, everyone. I'm Federico, and I work at Proformazione Italy, and maybe I can share our not experience, but our challenges on this topic, because we actually would really want to establish some circular migrations movement with non-EU countries. We already have a connection with non-EU countries, but at the moment the challenges we are facing the most are linked to accommodation and housing, which in our area is a pretty huge problem. And on second, a second big challenges we have is that we are a little bit ahead of companies' needs in our area. At least they need workers, but they still don't understand that these kind of circular migrations movement are necessary for us in this moment, and so they are not, let's say, aware enough. They are not ready enough to help and facilitate this kind of movement. So we had a context. We have first small experiences that could have been more successful, but companies were not ready on a cultural level, on a language level, and also on an awareness overall awareness level to implement these experiences. So we are working to increase their awareness and looking for foundings that will help us to create this kind of migration. So I thank you also for the call of proposal that you share for us, because I think that could be a good sparkle to start a virtuous circulation of workers.
Thank you, Federico. Maria Vittoria, would you like to react?
Yeah, Federico, thank you very much. So for those who don't know Alba, maybe if you want to say a bit the sectors, economic sectors where the circular migration could take place, because maybe among the participants here, there could be a room for partnership for the circular migrants to come to Alba from the countries represented in this meeting. That would be my first question for you. The second one, in terms of skills, your experience with migrants, how is it going? Do they have the right skill? Do they need a lot of upskilling, reskilling, recognition of their qualification? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So Alba is a pretty small area in the northwest of Italy, 1 hour and a half south of Turin. We are a small area, but with a growing economic sector, especially in the following areas where we are looking to establish this circular migrations movement. So food industry and in general gastronomy and tourism and hospitality, but also healthcare, more related to silver care, so hospital care and yeah, silver care in general, and lastly also on tech like mechatronics, mechanics, electricians. So these 4 areas are for us very important. And the second question, the skill wise, the challenges that we found the most. No, actually we found that migrant workers have a more than sufficient amount of skills. The problem is, of course, recognition of titles and of the recognition of these skills. But Piedmont region actually have some interesting non-formal and informal recognition of skill that might be very useful. There is a language, of course, skill gap, but we think it's very small, and the gap is easy to cover. So in our experience, the problem are more linked to a logistic problem, linked to visa, linked to openness of the industries of cooperating in these movements, and housings. I hope I've been clear. Of course, if anyone is interested in knowing more, I can write my email in the chat if you think it's needed, Maria Vittoria.
Thank you. Yeah, linked to this, and I'm aware of time, and I apologize that I will have to leave soon. It would be very important for us if you could write in the chat and or by email if you are interested to have a second session, which we could have on the 28th of May. But maybe my colleague will like to say more. I leave then the floor to Yolene. But just to say that this was the first part, more theoretical, if we like, but we would like to be more practical in the second one. And I leave the floor to Yolene on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maria Vittoria. And I know you will have to leave, so I will do the wrap up. But it's exactly what Maria Vittoria mentioned. We would like to have, but if there's enough interest, so please let us know in the chat, a second session on the 28th of May at the same time. And here we would, because today we were presenting all the, presenting the concept of skills and migration, the EU policies, but we would also like to hear more about your experiences, because what we do with ENE is also to learn from each other's experiences in the network. So if you have any examples you would like to share, any experiences you have, or how your center or a center in your country is addressing this, we would invite you to write to us or to let us know now in the chat. Maybe Loretta, you can share again the email address of ENE in the chat so people could write. Because our proposal for the next session would be to have a short recap, of course, of today's webinar, but then also to have like half an hour to share some experiences from Centres of Vocational Excellence, of VET providers addressing the skills needs of migrants, both like preparing maybe students to move abroad, as well as from the perspective of receiving migrants to find work in your country, your area, etc. And then we would also spend some time to present some of at least one of the studies Maria Vittoria referred to before as well. I see that there is interest in the next webinar. So let's plan for this next webinar. And I really hope that some of you would be willing to share some of your experiences. Please write to us, because I think it will be interesting to, like Federico already shared the experiences of Aproformazione, and it would be interesting to hear some more of these experiences, either about things that work well or projects maybe that supported this, or maybe also it would also be very interesting to hear the challenges you are facing to work on this. So with that, I would like to close the webinar. I would also like, because I realized that I didn't introduce Loretta this morning, but she did the chat moderation, and I would like to thank Loretta as well for moderating the chat and sharing all the big number of links we have been referring to in our presentations. So then I hope to see you again on the 28th of May, and I cannot emphasize it enough. Please write to us if you are available to share some of your experiences. Have a good week. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.